Fady Kassab is an Australian-based stand-up comedian who speaks 6 languages and is the 2019 winner of Australia's most prestigious comedy competition, Raw. He's received 5-star reviews and sold-out shows at the Sydney Comedy Festival. Growing up in Lebanon during 17 years of conflict, he credits the traumas of war to fueling his optimistic approach to life. You are actually my hero.
Okay.
So I think comedians are the most amazing people. I'm into personal development, but for me, if I ever did stand-up comedy, that would be my mastery level, especially the comedy that you do, because you take a lot of very serious topics, personally serious topics, culturally serious, and sometimes politically serious topics, and you make them light.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody gets them, but I think you're doing some amazing things. So let's talk about your comedy career and how it actually took off while you were having quite a difficult time in your life.
Okay, well, it's quite a story, to be honest. I had a lot of things happen, ups and downs at the same time. So in 2019 I entered a competition called Raw Comedy, which is the longest running open mic competition for new stand-up comedians in Australia. Over 25 years it's been running. So you do heats and then quarterfinal, semi-final. You get to the state final of New South Wales. And then if you win the state final or you get a wild card, whatever it is, you get to the final, which is part of the Melbourne Comedy Festival. It happens every year in April. So at the time I was passing through a very rough time with my marriage was falling apart. And it's like an earthquake, my marriage falling apart. You don't know where to go and all that. So, and it had been going on for a while. So I thought, I want to do a hobby on the side. So at the end of 2017, I started doing stand-up, and not much, maybe once a month.
Okay,
Or
so
something like
that was
that.
the first time you ever did stand-up.
Yeah,
It wasn't
true.
something you'd done all your life. It wasn't your career.
No.
Yeah.
My past has been in advertising and marketing for 15 years. Also, I was creative director. I was working in Germany for many years. For me, I was on stage a lot presenting, to clients. In Frankfurt, very serious Germans, for example, I would present stuff for them, couple hundred people. That was public speaking training for me.
Yes.
And I worked in SBS radio for a couple of years. I was a newsreader for the Arabic program, an interviewer.
But was comedy something you'd always wanted to
God.
do? Was it a dream of
My
yours?
whole life is just jokes.
Yes.
I never stop.
Okay.
It's always been like this. I really don't stop. And so when I started comedy, I thought I'll do stand-up just to test it.
Yep.
And I entered Raw Comedy in 2019 after like a year and a half.
Yep. And you mentioned that you entered it because you started to actually get into comedy because your wife started to do things for herself. So things were getting...
She was learning, she was doing stuff from physical exercise, for example, or what do you call them, acrobatics classes or dancing lessons and stuff like that, which is, I think, a phase we all have to go through as well. Because when you have children, and we have 2 children, you feel that life is taking a few years off you because of the kids, although it brings you so much joy from them. So all of us trying to rediscover, we hit those late 30s, early 40s, we try to rediscover who we are. So she was on that path, and I felt, I should do something for me. Also as a coping mechanism.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's fantastic because so many men, when they go through divorce or they go through a breakup and they've been with one woman for a long time, that becomes their identity.
Yeah.
And a lot of men lose interests outside of the family because they dedicate so much to the family. So the fact that you use that as a platform to develop yourself and actually open up this part of your life is quite amazing.
To be honest, I didn't think of it like that at the time. At the time when I started, it was this inner calling.
Yeah.
I was sitting in my chair, I don't know what I was doing, maybe at the computer, and I get this flash, try stand-up. And it was my inner being saying to me, hey, this is something you should do. And I just don't question it. And I went, okay, I'll give it a try.
And that's really different to, I guess, the thinking or the way we've been trained to do things. I think especially in the Western world, it's all about planning. It's all about trying to figure out what is our purpose, what are we good at, what are our skills. But for you, it sounds like there was some space and you were connecting with yourself in some way. I'm not sure if you were meditating or, you know, you had been doing some personal development already.
No, that's the thing. None of that.
No, okay.
You see, you need that big shock, trauma, a marriage ending to catapult you into this something new and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Initially, it's uncomfortable. Everything is like this. They say ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not why ships were built. I love that saying. It's true. You have to get out and do something. So for me, I was reading like what to do if marriage falls apart, like on Google.
Yes.
And everything I read at the time was work on yourself. You can never control the other person. You can never control their actions, their behaviors. You can control how you behave and what to do and develop yourself. So for me, I went, okay. And I didn't think of it much until I got this lightning bolt of, hey, try stand up. And it was strange. And I did 4 appearances on stage. Then I entered the competition in 2018 and I lost from the first round. I mean, I was a novice, and some people have been doing it years before they enter. And I didn't know. So the following.
So what made you enter? Just go for it.
I thought if I do it, that will force me to write material.
Yeah.
And push myself and find out what I want to say, because I was always a big fan of George Carlin, and he was a very famous comedian, and he said something about meaning. Right, what you want to say has something to do with the meaning of your life. What is the meaning? He says, I used to write stand-up from the front of my head. I used to think, what would people find funny? And then it didn't get me much or get me anywhere. He goes, and then he started seeing all these artists speaking from their heart and about everything from like, imagine all the people, like songs like that he quoted, people saying, there's something in them saying, imagine if the world had no religion and no wars and no. It goes, okay. And that switched his mentality. It goes, I started saying what from the back of my head. I started writing, what do I want to say and make that funny?
Yeah.
Because there are 2 approaches. You can go, this is a funny thought, and you say it on stage and people go, yeah. And he said, but if something really has meaning for you and you say it, then you're speaking part of your soul, and then becomes very philosophical, almost poetic what you write. And people see this underlying meanings. It's packaged beautifully, but has a very underlying substance to it. And that helps you with your career, with any job that you do.
And I love what you're saying, and I love that analogy, from the back of your mind or from the front of your mind. And I think because you've got a marketing background, in marketing, it's almost the opposite. Well, with basic marketing, you're meant to find out what the audience wants. What does the market want? But I think with more advanced or really like leading edge marketing, it's about creating something new.
Correct.
And the best artists like Picasso, they create things that are new, things that seem useless. Because do you sort of get this feeling, because you deal with, you know, a huge amount of people on stage and the public, that a lot of people don't necessarily even know what they want?
True.
Or what they like.
I mean,
let alone who they are.
What's funny, I mean, if you take Apple as a company, Apple always advertises the experience, not the product. Whereas, for example, Microsoft always advertises the features. Hey, this has this. The camera has these many pixels. And whereas Apple say, capture moments with your friends and family using the new iPhone. For them, that's the device is to help you. So their approach since inception has been very different, because they know if they can connect with you on a very personal level, they can sell the product and make you pay quadruple the amount for it. So marketing, when it's really advanced, they try to connect to the sometimes insecurities, sometimes fears, and that's why I left marketing. I mean, in the end, I left marketing. I couldn't take it. Advertising, I felt there's no legacy in it for me. There's no, what do I say to my children? Hey, I raised this mobile network's profits 30% for this campaign, which ended after 3 months of launching because there was a new device that came out and it was obsolete. And what legacy am I leaving?
Right, so it was sort of losing meaning. And I think a lot of what you do, it's not so much about the audience applauding you. I get this sense there's a deeper meaning to your comedy. And, you know, laughter is really important for our vibrational frequency, for our health. And right now, like, we've got so much suicide, we've got so much depression. So laughter is a real medicine. So I'm just wondering if you've always used laughter throughout your life, because I don't know if a lot of people know this about you, but you did grow up throughout the Lebanese war. So your
Correct,
childhood was based in war, and you've said
Yeah.
that this is what gives you your optimistic perspective on life.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True, because you know what? It's funny how they say if you change. Because I'm a big fan, and I'm gonna throw it out there of like Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks,
Yeah.
and Wayne Dyer, and you have something like Gabor Mate. I'm a big fan of it. All these people who talk about trauma
Yeah.
and how you heal trauma from child. Like for me, it wasn't trauma. I was surrounded by very loving parents.
Yeah.
Throughout bombing, throughout living in bomb shelters for 9 months at a time, all that stuff. I had a lot of love given to me. So for me as well, if I saw my parents nervous, I'm the middle child. I would go, hey, here's a joke for you to make everything better.
Yeah.
And now I look back at it, I put a lot of responsibility on myself. It wasn't really my job. And they used to say, oh, you're so funny, Fady. You're so funny. And I got rewarded for the outcome.
So responsibility to lift people's emotions, to make
I
people
had that,
feel
like,
better.
because I could.
Yes.
I could easily do it. So I felt I should do it. Now, if I'm having a bit of a rough time and my kids try to make it lighter, I actually sit with them and say, listen, you don't have to do any of that. You don't, because look at that, I made my bed. I go, thank you for making it, but you didn't have to do that to make me feel better, okay? Just remember.
No, I love that. I love that. The more we learn, I think, life is going to become easier for our children, but there's always going to be that bit of shadow that we're going to give them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's
I'm
always
give them my own new brand of trauma.
There's always going to be that double-edged sword. So do you think growing up in this time of war has allowed you to deal with chaos more, and even just throwing yourself into doing Raw Comedy Festival when you're still an amateur?
Yeah, I guess it teaches you something. First of all, life is very valuable.
Yeah.
It really, it's a joy. It's a gift. And anyone who's been through rough times and has gone through them, it's like labor. You're reborn. And you realize that if you follow kind of the river of life, let it carry you, and don't stress too much, because if I now look at what's happening in Ukraine or any of it, and I feel so bad for the people there, because I remember what I've been through, but also remember where I am now, and that there is actual light at the end of the tunnel. And people could do that. It might take them years, but they could change their reality. So for me, to have this much of a tough upbringing, sometimes we would miss school for 9 months because of bombing, and we were sitting in a bomb shelter that we built ourselves. The kids helped the parents do it. When I look at that kind of life, and then we're relearning everything in 3 months for school, and I look at my kids' life here, I go, oh, this is so easy for them, and I worry for them. So, I wrote my whole new show this year. My show is called Fireworks, and it's about that journey, because when I was a kid, I made fireworks from explosives that we found, like from the war.
Yeah, sounds safe.
Yes, and I go and I look at them, I go, they have everything so safe in Australia.
Yeah.
How are they going to be strong?
But the safety is dangerous as well, right?
That's right.
Because now you see kids, they're sort of glued to their phones. I think with a lot of young men, social interaction, dealing with women is a lot more confusing than it used to be, because it's the unknown. The opposite sex is the unknown. And
on that point, though, my kids don't have devices. They're 12 and 10.
Okay.
There's no phone in their life.
Okay.
There's none. They go to a Steiner school.
Okay.
So what I mean, this idea of lack of interaction with other humans, it's coming mainly from social media, because they can do a mean comment and not feel a reaction from someone.
Well, they don't get the consequences.
There's no consequence,
right?
Absolutely.
So you don't get a real reaction from a human.
True.
And on that note, these sort of scary topics of social media,
Yeah.
of interaction, what did you find scarier, doing comedy or the new dating world that you've entered? What is scarier?
To be honest, I'm starting to deal with this recently. I had a chat with you a few weeks ago, and you made me do some stuff that was really eye-opening.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. So, I can
Share with me.
Share with you?
Yes.
For many years, like I've been divorced 4 years now.
Yeah.
But
I usually do give unsolicited advice.
You
It's
do.
not
Very
always taken.
unasked. No, I took it.
But I love that you took it. So share with
I took
me
it
how
because
it
we were
went.
talking about holding on to resentment or something like that, and I had to sit down. I sat down in the last few weeks since I spoke to you, and every time a resenting thought came out, not just about my marriage falling apart, but also something from my childhood or something that happened to me in traffic, or I've been making an effort to have a mental note to deal with that later, right? And see, like, through meditation. And I started meditation last few weeks. It's been a very wonderful and strange experience.
Yeah.
But what happened is I got a few things that I'm sorting out that's making me way more open to people now, because the dating world, I shut it down.
Yes.
I totally shut it
Yeah.
down. Like, and the pandemic
Because what
hit.
you told me was that it was so hard to meet a woman, right?
Very,
and what I
yeah.
told you was that, and this is what I tell a lot of men who say that, there are men in prison who meet women on the outside, right? You're
Correct.
tall and you're pretty much you're famous. So
well,
I don't know what your excuse is.
My excuse is me.
Yes.
Yeah. I, for example, I didn't date for 3 years. Not one person.
Yeah.
Not go out on a date, no physical, anything. And it's funny because the world was throwing a lot of opportunities my way.
Yes.
But when you're not ready, you're not ready. So for many years, I avoided that. And I put, here's something I dealt with in the last few weeks. I used the guilt of the aggrieved husband as a power source for me, that I've been wronged.
Yeah. Holding on to that charge.
And if I hold on to that, I'm so noble.
Yes.
I was wronged. How is the world, you know what I mean? And it might happen again. So I don't want to give in myself. So that, for me,
well that's protection. That's the
that is
nervous
protection, but
system
that's
protecting
not a good
us,
thing.
right? And initially our nervous system just wants to keep us alive, right?
Yeah.
So maybe initially you weren't ready, but what happens with a lot of men is we're not actually taught this. So they never let go of that resentment, and they go into their new relationship, the next one, the next divorce, until eventually, there's no one left, or they will never meet someone because the resentment hasn't been let go of, because it makes you feel safe, it makes you feel powerful. But
Correct.
the challenging thing is to let
and
go.
here's an example. Here's an example of what you said to me. You said deal with some emotions that come up, and resentment here that's coming from. If you deal with that, you'll be flooded with relationship opportunities and all that. But that's not why I did it. There's not for a purpose. I'm serious.
Okay.
I thought, hold on, I should deal with some stuff and I realized something. I had a memory that whenever I felt sick and I didn't feel that my ex dealt with me with over affection, like when she wasn't too affectionate or didn't care too much that I was sick or that I injured myself, or I didn't get that big, are you okay? And like this hugging or this gushing feeling, I felt that was very insensitive. And I thought, why do I feel that? And I had to, in the last few weeks, look back at my life. My mother's first child, we had a sister. She died when she was over a year old. She had a cardiac problem. And we're talking 50 years ago. Like, it was the first child more than 50 years ago. So, and then when they gave birth to my sister, it was the first one after, they were so worried that this might happen again, my mother and father. So, and then 3 boys after that. So my mother, if we tripped and fell, she would go over the top. My son, are you okay? Are you hurt? Is everything okay? And we grew up with that.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the norm. And if
that's
I don't
how
get
you
that,
received love.
absolutely, that's how I received
care,
it.
that worry,
over the top. I mean,
yes.
And if I don't get that from a partner now, I go, she's insensitive.
But it's interesting that your wife was a German woman, a very characteristic.
She's wonderful.
Yes.
She's absolutely wonderful,
And
really.
My partner's half German as well.
Oh, really? Okay. There you go.
But that's the thing. So you attracted someone who had qualities who are really the opposite of your culture that you grew up in, and probably the opposite to how your mother was. And usually people either meet the same or they meet the opposites. And we can do all the personal development work that we want alone. And there's a lot of work we need to do alone. But until we get into a relationship, we don't really see those little creases, those little shadows, those triggers don't come up in us. So
true, you need the darkness. That's where you find really the actual light. You have to search for a light there when you're in the darkness. And that kind of idea of, I was blaming, I was holding resentment, for example, in that sense. And now I'm aware that if it happens again with someone else, it is not projected at me. It is the way they are. And actually the law of allowing them to be who they are. And it's a big process.
Yeah.
But what's happened as well is that I've been feeling much more free these days.
Yes. Well, when you let go, then you don't realize how much emotional baggage that you carry. And it's not just from the negative things that happen. We carry emotional baggage from the good days, from our wins, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's like letting go of the past.
Oh yeah, what are you like when you say you're such a good boy? Well done, Fady. Well done. You're so good. Okay, am I? And then you go to stand up and people clap. You go, hey, that's what my mother used to say.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's some
I'm
connection.
good. And that's when you start.
Right,
And then you
yes.
realize later it's
That's
not
when the
about
ego
you.
begins.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think people who acquire a level of success, initially it comes from that allowing, following, that internal calling. But when the path starts to go into another route, I think in Sydney, drugs are really common. When people become successful, there's more drugs, there's more people that want things from you, you get a bigger head. And that's when that
Interesting.
path starts to waver. So if you don't have that internal guidance, or if you don't have
internal love for yourself as
internal
well.
love, when you're not just seeking validation, which I think what's a really interesting part of your story, that I find the most amazing in terms of your success in comedy, because comedy is a tough game. That's why I said you're my hero. Anyone who does stand-up comedy and does well in it, it takes a lot of courage, and you're pretty much standing up to other people's criticism. I mean, people can boo you, they don't laugh.
Yeah.
But what I think is amazing, that one of your biggest wins was during maybe one of the worst weeks of your life, when you were getting divorced and you got bad news from about your father.
Yeah. I can talk about that if you like.
Yeah, share with us
so basically,
what happened internally.
I realized something, that the universe has plans for me,
Yes.
and I tried to swim upstream, and I shouldn't just flow with it. I mean, I entered that competition. I made it all the way to the state final, and I was feeling a lot of dis-ease, unease in my relationship. And I said to my parents in Lebanon, you know what? I always come and visit with my wife and kids. I'm gonna come along. If I lose this competition on Tuesday, I will fly by Friday. I'll fly to Lebanon. It means if I don't make the state final, I don't have 2 weeks later to fly to Melbourne to be there for the grand final. It's going to be on TV and all that.
Yeah.
And I did so well that night. It was an insane performance, I felt.
Yeah.
And I lost. And I felt very strange. I thought I shouldn't have lost.
Because you had the expectation.
I had the expectation that I should have won the final.
And it wasn't even like
state.
you were revving yourself up or pumping yourself up. You just something inside of you.
And within 3 days, I booked a ticket, flew to Lebanon. So I get to the airport. My father is coming to meet me with my brother, and it's raining. And then I come out with my bags, and I see my brother say, hey, where's Dad? And he goes, Dad just slipped. And he hit his chin on the floor. So I go and I see my dad, like his chin is cut, he's bleeding on his shirt. So are you okay? Like, I have my bags. We go, let's take you to hospital. So we go to a hospital and they do a scan for him just to be safe, because he hasn't been feeling great. They find a brain tumor. They say.
So you only found that out then?
Only because he came to pick me up. Only because he came to pick me up. And the doctor said the edema in the brain had progressed so far. He said he probably had a week to live.
Yeah, wow. So if you had won that competition, you wouldn't go back to Lebanon.
I wouldn't have gone, and he would have died that week, right? I went, okay. So he said, if we operate, it'll give him another 6 months, which it did in the end. It gave him 6 months.
Yes.
So I'm sitting in the hospital. Second day, I'm going, is this why I came here to see my father dying? And I get an email. You've been given a wild card to the final in Melbourne. You're going to be on TV. You're going to be part of the state national final. And I'm sitting there going to my mother, I'm not going. And my mother's very typically Lebanese. She goes, what are you, a brain surgeon?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? They're going to operate on your dad, sit with us for a week, and then fly. You still have enough time to get there. And which I did. And I remember I left there because I'm feeling my marriage is about to just collapse. I needed a breather to see my family and recharge. So I spent 9 days or 11 days in hospital every day from 7 a.m. till closing, 7 p.m. So I didn't do anything. I was with my dad, sitting next to him at the bedside, chatting and all that after I did this operation. Flew to Australia, and I kind of landed in Sydney. Second day, I flew to Melbourne. So I spent a little time with my ex-wife and kids. And I get to Melbourne. They film us. I go on stage, around 1,500 people or 2,000 people. And I win the national competition.
exactly how you expected.
Exactly
but
how I
just not the
expected.
path of how you expected.
And
right?
a week later, my ex-wife said, "You know what? I think I can't. I'm gonna move out." So she left.
Yeah, wow. So you
So
had
a
one of the
week
biggest
before,
highs,
almost, a week before my
biggest
father's
lows.
dying, then I win the biggest competition in comedy in Australia, and then my ex-wife leaves. All happened within a span of what, 14 days, whatever it is. And every time people said, "How are you dealing with this?" I go, I don't know. I never had this overwhelming feeling of being crushed and all that. And I felt life is, I should just take a breath. I'm not going to indulge into, I'm not going to go into euphoria from winning or into depression from.
And was that a logical internal thing that happened, or were you just feeling so overwhelmed by the highs and the lows that it almost leveled you out in a way?
I wonder, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's a good way of thinking about it. It's kind of, I told everyone at the time, it's like life is saying to me, I'm going to take this away from you, but here's something else.
Yes. And I guess sometimes these things make so little practical or logical sense of
At the
what
time,
our,
especially,
brain is telling us. So when we're in one of those situations, all we can do is be present and go with it and see what happens next. Because I guess we sort of feel like we're not in control anymore. So was there a sense that you weren't doing the doing anymore?
Oh, I wasn't doing anything. I was a vessel.
Yeah.
I don't know, like as if someone was living my life through me. But to be honest as well, later on, because then I had to deal with the deteriorate, with the dissolution of the marriage. So I came back from winning this, and I remember, like, I had many opportunities. People say, I'd say to people in comedy clubs, to like girls, to comedians, "Hi, I'm Fady." They go, "Yeah, I know," because I had a name from winning that. Like, everyone knew me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't act upon it. I didn't want to act upon it. I had a bigger issue. My father's dying.
Yes, there were a lot of things.
Yeah.
So did you enjoy the success?
No.
At all? No. So
no.
you didn't.
And I even today don't think of it as success at all.
And the interesting thing, a lot of people who are, driven by success, they're going for that feeling at the end, that applause, you have a literal applause, but often when we get to that final point where we think it's our final end result or our final goal, we expect it to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And it often doesn't.
No,
right?
Like when you finish school, say, I'm going to go to uni.
Yeah.
And then you go to uni. Oh, is that it? And then I want to start a job, and I want this in my job. I always wanted to be creative director in advertising. I wanted to, and when I got it, and then I went even above that in Germany. I was head of the whole region, Europe, Middle East, Africa. I was flying to Paris and Rome and South Africa, and they were spending on me. I'm going, this is weird. This life doesn't feel for me as a life that I don't want it. So I left Germany because I got offered a promotion. I was told, Fady, look, we've done such a great job. Here's a promotion. And immediately I was at a crossroads. I thought, I don't want that life. I want to change. And so coming back here within a few years, comedy, life changes. To be honest, though, this aftermath of the marriage falling apart after winning, and then what do you do then? So I had few choices. Like, I can either go, oh, come on, we didn't even talk it out. Like, let's do this. I'll try to save it. And like, actually, which I had done. We tried to negotiate it, but I always held my, shut my mouth, as they say. I never said one bad word, which was, I always thought, I'm so proud of this. I never said.
And you had a very amicable divorce.
Very
amicable. Said
We're
that
best friends
cost
now.
you $400.
It cost me $400. I made a joke about it last week. I said, listen, a gentleman always pays for the divorce. Let me do it. It's like $900.
Yeah,
no,
very
Fady, we'll split it.
Yeah.
I'm
well,
Lebanese.
She's German, so.
Yeah, she's German, of course. I'm Lebanese, and we went Dutch. That's what I said.
Amazing.
It was a bad joke anyway, but it's, so that's what happened. And even the kids, after she moved out, and when you were someone with 12 years, and like 10 years of marriage, 12 of them together, and I thought I should speak from the heart for the kids, because the kids were lost.
Yeah.
Suddenly the house was missing a person.
Well, the whole world is literally split in two.
Split, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, I haven't said anything bad ever about the mother, but I haven't said anything good.
Yes.
Either. And I had a choice. So I started saying to them after like maybe a week, 10 days of one time, said, I love your mother so much. She's the most wonderful woman. And I truly believe that. Even today, I feel she's wonderful.
But do you think, in a way, I think this is really beautiful for a lot of people to hear, because they do the opposite, right? They sort of, maybe now there's a bit more education around it, but I know, I'm sort of a product of divorce as well, and a lot of friends that I grew up with is, you hear a lot of the parents sort of taking out their own emotions on the child, right? The child is like the therapist, right? So that's my job today.
Never do that
However,
to a kid. Yeah.
but do you, and now we've got sort of more of this awareness, more knowledge, and, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of this toxic positivity. Do you think saying that to your kids maybe even too soon is perpetuating, suppressing, you know, some of that resentment, some of that anger as well?
For me, maybe.
Yeah.
But for them, it was life-changing.
Yeah, okay.
And I bit the bullet, as they say. I took the hit.
Right.
For me, I was saying it, although I didn't believe it fully
Okay.
at the time.
Yes.
Now I do, of course. But I would
Yes.
say I love her very much. It's a shame we're not together. Hey, these things happen, but we love you so much. You're going to have a great new apartment. You're going to have bunk beds. I would say that to them. And they got excited.
And
At
maybe
school,
even you saying it
better.
got you excited as well. So maybe that shifted the dynamic, you know, as Abraham Hicks talks about. It's like,
which I didn't get to till years after. Like I didn't even know. And how I behaved was on par with my alignment with my inner being, if you want to say it like this. So I didn't even know I was doing that. All I knew was, am I going to be proud of how I behaved 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? I can swear and I can throw tantrums and I can make the kids be my spies. And what did you do on the weekend? And
so you're trying to have hindsight early on.
I immediately stopped.
Yeah.
And even now, like I remember my mother said, "Oh, Fady, this shouldn't happen," you know. like where's she? I go, "Oh, she went camping for a few days." You tell her, "What do you mean? What wife goes camping?" You tell her to come here and be by her husband. I said, "Mom, please don't interfere. First of all, what kind of person would I be if I tell her she can't go with her friends and camping?" And she needed a break. Yes. You know what I mean? Like she would go with her friends and girlfriends and all that, and they would go camping do yoga retreats. And I'm saying to my mother, I cannot. What are you talking about? And now after all these years, my mother is saying, "Fady, you behaved so right.
Wow.
You're an angel. You should find someone because every day your market value is dropping."
Your mom doesn't realize you're getting more and more famous. So
I said, "Well, fame. But imagine if I attract someone based on fame. What kind of life would that be? I don't want that." Yeah. So it's interesting. So
that was my little joke.
All of that, it was bad jokes. Asha. Don't try it again.
You'll educate me on that. It's been such a pleasure talking to you. I could talk to you probably for a week straight. But I want to ask you just a few closing questions.
Go on.
Just to sum it up. First question I want to ask you is, you know, in a sentence, if you could give your younger self a word of advice or a sentence of advice, what would it be?
Oh, trust your inner compass.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a little voice we shut down. We say, "I want to do something," and there's some little thing inside you that says, "This is not right. This is not really." Don't silence that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. It happened to me last week. I packed. I wanted to go. I thought I'll swim, then I'll go to have drink somewhere, like go to the comedy, watch some comedy and all that. And I packed. I left the house in the car. That was last week. And as I drove, I'm a kilometer away from my house. I got this overwhelming feeling to go back home. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what it is. I didn't know.
And there was no logic.
No logic to it at all. And I went to the roundabout, came back and went back home. And I cooked dinner and I sat and watched something on TV. So I don't know, but all I know is I trusted that feeling, which I never used to.
Yes.
And it feels very basic. Because I was telling that someone the other day and I said, that happened to me. And I said, and then what happened? I said, I don't know what. There's no then, there's no ending to this. All I know is that I had a feeling and I should just follow it. And I do that in every aspect. Like Melbourne Comedy Festival, I didn't sign up after I won. Mm-hmm. They said, "Fady, you just won the biggest competition. You should go to the Melbourne Comedy Festival." I go, I forgot to sign up. I wonder why.
Yeah, sometimes when we forget, we don't forget, especially if we're not forgetful people.
And what happened is COVID hit.
Yeah.
And the festival was cancelled. And all my friends who had printed posters and they lost money. But I had forgotten to sign up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So there's something in us all. It just doesn't feel right. Just move away. And be with people who is effortless to be with. Sometimes I meet people and I cannot stand. I haven't spoken to them. I cannot stand being around these people. There's something, and I just move away. I just avoid the situation. And there's no logic to it.
No.
And
it might seem rude or something, but
but
trusting
listen to
that inner voice.
Absolutely. Trust it.
Yeah. No, I love that. Second question.
Yeah.
In one sentence, if you can.
Fine.
Just one sentence.
Okay,
We're running out of time.
yes.
But if you were to give some men out there advice who are going through a divorce or going through a really challenging time in their life, maybe with family, with work, like they're at a crossroads, what advice would you give them?
Can it be 3-4 sentences?
Yes. I'll give you a little
Always
bit
behave
more.
with love.
Mm-hmm.
If you put love at the center of everything,
Yes.
towards your ex, towards whatever relationship, towards work, towards yourself, love yourself a lot, forgive yourself. Little things that happen, don't talk to yourself like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, how could I do this? I'm so stupid. No, forgive yourself. And because the universe only knows yes, because it loves you so much. You say, I'm feeling horrible. Yes. You go, I'm depressed. The universe goes, yeah, you are. You go, actually, no, I think I'm going to be great. You go, yes. It'll always say yes to you. And like, I think I have cancer. Yes. But I died. The universe goes, yes, that's okay.
Yes.
Death is nothing. It's just for in the grand scheme of things, we're just changing states of consciousness. So for me, love, forgiveness towards yourself and others, it's the only way to live. Don't hold on to grudges and resentment. Maybe if they do your course, you can give them a few tips.
Yeah. And
so
that
love,
actually
yeah.
really hit my heart when you said that, because I think so many men and women do it as well. But, you know, we start off loving this person and then that love can turn to hate so easily, right? And it doesn't make any sense at all. And then we end up hating ourselves because of what we've done to that person. So if we can
There's
just...
no regret with love.
Yeah. And I think so many people hurt themselves based on what they've done to other people, right? But they're still holding on to that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, I think that's amazing advice. And the final closing question is, what are you excited about now in your life? What's giving you joy and what's raising your vibration at the moment?
Oh, okay. That's tough. Few things. I started meditation recently, which is silencing my mind.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that because I'll get to talk to myself. I think, I know it sounds very philosophical, but social media, newspapers, street signs, traffic, everything is just constantly talking to us through language,
Yes.
just signs and messages and phones, always notifications, to try to shut down all of that and say everything, shut up so I can listen to who I am. For me, that's exciting because I'm getting to know myself. Also letting go of consequences. I had never used to do that. For example, meeting a woman, I used to have like, if I can't get her to date me, there's never going to be another woman. That idea, just letting go of having this abundance mentality, that not just with jobs, with money, it's okay like to say no to things sometimes. You go, but this would have brought me money. I go, no. If you feel you should say no to it. You know, and it'll come in another way. There's endless possibilities. What I'm excited about, I feel, as Esther Hicks Abrahams, there's nothing that you cannot be, do, or have. And I never used to think that.
Yeah, beautiful.
There's nothing that I cannot be, do, or have. So for me, let's see what that takes. We'll catch up in a few years and
See
if it
gonna
did
be
anything.
that long?
No, we'll do it closer. So,
but
I'm
yeah,
excited
no,
about
it
that.
sounds like there's just a path opening up for you. And I've said this before. I think you've got big things to do in this world, and it sounds like it's internal freedom, getting away from all the distractions, all the roles that we have to play, so that you can start to connect more so with that inner guidance, what you've discovered over the last few years, and start to pave a new path for yourself. So I think that's amazing. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for sharing your insights, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks for having me, Sasha. This is a wonderful podcast. It's been a joy. Thank you.